Let's go ahead and pull this dashboard apart and get ready for the new gauges. I am going to have to switch all of these because these are mechanical gauges and everything from the Hemi computer is going to be electronic. And actually the speedometer is going to have to be a GPS speedometer. It's kind of one downside of the TR6060 is that it doesn't come with any sort of speedometer output, but nowadays you can just get a GPS speedometer, problem solved. I thought about trying to keep the original gauges, which, you know, the 4 right ones aren't original. These are aftermarket anyway. But it's pretty hard to, especially with the speedometer, you have to get some box that, you know, turns a motor and it's pretty complex. So also this guy only goes up to 120 miles an hour, which obviously is not going to cut it. So gotta upgrade that guy too. I am of course going to add a tachometer, which is going to go right there in the center. Kind of like that, you know, center of the steering wheel, sort of most prominent, I guess, other than the big guy here, but I have a few ideas. Got it. That was a little difficult. Lost my hat there. You know things are serious when I lose my hat. There we go. Now we're talking. Look at that rat's nest. There's my stereo. It's like a little amplifier with a Bluetooth attachment on it. I ended up having to loosen the steering column there to get that thing out, but luckily I didn't have to take off this dash pad. All right, it's a new day. I got my interior taped off like a Dexter kill room here. And I think I'm ready to get cutting. I kind of don't really know how to go about this. I mean, I know that the transmission is a good bit wider and a good bit taller. So, you know, it's not just cutting the tunnel here. It's not like I have to cut the top off. I have to take some width out of here too. There is a cross member somewhere in, I think right here. You can see the welding spots right there. This is, let me get in here. There's a cross member right here, which actually is going to be the trickiest part of this whole thing. I'm going to have to cut out this like sort of structural cross member and then rebuild it larger. That's going to be a big challenge, but I'll figure it out. So then there's a certain amount of cutting I have to do up in the sort of firewall area, because I mean the bell housing of this is also pretty large, bigger than the original. So maybe I guess I gotta measure the transmission first and then see if we can draw some lines and get an approximation. Okay, so we'll start with the tail section here, right at the back. So at the widest part, we're looking at, it's going to be, I guess, 8 inches. Ooh, you know what? Let's call it 9, because this actually right here is a little wider. Oh yeah, no, yeah, we're looking at 9 inches. All right, 9 inches at the tail. Middle section's looking like 10 inches. Last but not least, bell housing. We're looking at, I'm going to say 15 inches there. Oh boy. All right. 15. We're looking at 10 and 9. I should probably write all this down. All right. I'm going to try and estimate this, but you know, this doesn't really seem like it's going to be too far off. I mean, already I'm measuring from the edges here, side to side, and I mean, it's about 8 inches right there. So, you know, I might need to take it in another, I guess, I know that rear end of that thing was about 9, so we'll cut it to 10. So we're looking at about there. I guess it widens up to 10, so we'll call it 11 up here. Oh man, I'm just approximating. Whew. It's a lot of floor. So this is the real tricky part here. I just don't know how well it's going to fit in here, but from all of the pictures I've seen online, they do end up cutting a little bit of the firewall up here. And so we were looking at around 15. So I do need to trim off a good bit on the sides here. I suppose if I end up cutting too much, I can just weld, metal back in, not a big deal. And if I don't cut enough, I can always cut more later. I think it's probably better actually to cut a little bit too much than not enough, because, I don't want to be fussing with this thing and cutting right next to the transmission once this thing's in here. All right, got the first piece out. Woo, I really cut it. Okay, happy thoughts. All right, that's 2 sections down. Just one last little piece to go. And this is the hardest area because it does have the cross member going right through here. Here's a look on the bottom side. That's the reinforcing cross member there. So I'm gonna have to cut through that. That's definitely a structural piece to the car, so I'll have to make sure to rebuild it. I mean, I have the torsion bars bolting in, Torsion bars bolt into that guy right there. This is the transmission mount, which I do have bolted in there for now, so it'll kind of help reinforce it while I'm rebuilding this guy. There it is. Cut this thing wide open. No, I think it went pretty good. This guy was pretty easy to cut through. It's definitely not terribly thick metal, this reinforcement, cross member thing here. And, I was worried about cutting this out and then, I don't know, maybe, something shifting or it not being able to hold the weight of the car and it, buckling or something, I don't know. But as you can see, this cross member here that I bolted in, I loosened it and it's, it's still loose. I might need to cut these guys down a little bit more, but I didn't want to cut too much off of these braces, so I kind of left it a little bit longer here. And I think it's safe to say I cut enough off of the floor. I kind of cut maybe more than I sort of anticipated, but so let's see where we're at now. I think I said I needed 9 inches for the back. We're at, we're at 11. 11 in the back. In the middle here, it is a little under 9, so I'll probably end up bending these guys back here. Or, we'll see how this all lines up, but I'll probably end up cutting off, another inch or so on each of these guys. In the middle here, we're at 13. That's good. Up here, 14. And I think I needed 15 up here, so I might actually end up cutting off. I did go within the white line here because I didn't want to cut into the firewall unless I have to. So I'll probably end up just bending this guy out a little bit, So let's talk a little bit about the gauges. My car came with this set of gauges here, which is the original speedometer, but some aftermarket mechanical gauges here. Water, oil pressure, voltage, and a fuel gauge. And I like the look of these. I will say that the factory gauges, in my opinion, are sort of, or at least the standard factory gauges are sort of unremarkable. The speedometer only goes up to 120, and this gauge cluster is actually so common. I have a couple of these. I have 3 of these. If you're curious, that's what the original set of gauges looks like, and they're really just sort of plain. I don't know. I think there are companies that make electronic versions of the old gauges, but they're very expensive, of course, because anything with classic cars, is just ridiculously expensive, especially custom stuff. And then also we have some indicator lights here, which are for your high beam, your brake light, and the oil light. And these are just little sort of pieces of thin plastic that the light shines through, and they also get old and you have to glue them in there. And I thought about this for quite a while, and I researched a bunch of different options, sticking to the originals or just going full aftermarket. And the sizes here are a little bit limiting. These are 2 5/8 holes here, and then the speedometer here is just over 5 inch, and that's sort of a rare gauge size when you're looking for speedometers. So I really didn't have a lot of options for these, and I just decided to go ahead and go full aftermarket. So I'm going with these autometer gauges right here. These are the autometer sport comps, which are a pretty common gauge for muscle car, drag racing. It's a pretty basic, simple design, but I'm going with function over form, I think, on this one, just clear gauges and, full electronic and all of that. Now, there are 2 things specifically that made me pick this series. One was that they actually make a small tachometer that will fit in my dashboard. I almost just went ahead with a pedestal tachometer strapped onto the steering column. And, I think that's kind of a cool look, but it does hide whatever gauge is behind it, and it's kind of nice to have it, as part of the dashboard. So that was one reason. They actually make this small tachometer, which is sort of rare. And the other reason was that they do make a speedometer that is a 5-inch, so it will fit in the dashboard. And more importantly is that this is a GPS speedometer. So there you have it. Got my fuel gauge, water temp, oil pressure, got the tachometer, and got the speedometer that goes up to 140 now, which is important. Not that I'll ever drive that fast. So I found these little LED lights on eBay, which are, they just look like modern car lights. They're clear, easy to see. When they're not lit, it'll just kind of blend in with the dashboard, I'm hoping. There you go. And I think that's a pretty good solution. They have all of the lights you could be looking for, warning lights and oil lights and everything. And they have all of the different sizes too. So I found the right size that was gonna fit the original holes and be, around the same size. And I'm just gonna go ahead and replace these 3, and then I'm gonna drill holes out here, here, and here to add in the other indicator lights that I need for the, electronic stuff. So the one thing I don't really care for in these gauges is the gray, silver, bezel. I think that's going to sort of stand out on a full black interior. But that's something a little paint can fix really easily. So I'm going to go ahead and fix those guys. All right, there we go. There's the finished product. I think these things look pretty good. The orange-red needle matches the car color really well. And I like having an in-dash tack, I think these dash lights came out awesome. I think I want to try these guys out. Let's plug some into the battery and see what they look like. All right, first up, oil pressure light. Next up is the brake light, or I guess parking brake light. Next up is the high beam. All right, we got a battery light. I went ahead and added this guy so I didn't have to have a voltage meter. Next is the check engine light, very important. Last but not least, shift light. They didn't actually have a shift light option, so I kind of just picked one that I thought best represented shifting, and to me that looks a little bit like a shifter with the shift knob on top. All right, can't forget the blinkers. So I got some toys to go along with my rear axle rebuild. Right now my axle has an open differential and I think like 276 gears. Pretty much the most boring axle you could possibly get, Good to keep the RPMs down on the freeway, but not good for the 6-speed. So I got these guys. These are 410s, which are normally a pretty aggressive gear ratio for, a street car. But since I have that 6-speed, that's still gonna put me at about, I think, 1800 RPM at around like 70 or 75 miles per hour. So I think well suited for the 6-speed. And, I actually might even be cruising in 5th gear most of the time on the freeway still. So definitely good for some tire burning for sure. And I got this bad boy right here. This is the Eaton Truetrac. This guy's kind of unique. It's a non-clutch type Posi. So, typically you'd find a sure grip clutch Posi in these old Dodges or old Mopars. And this guy is a little bit different. It uses, like, I'm not exactly sure, but worm gears or whatever, helical gears. It's a torsion type Posi, whatever that means, torsion type Posi. I ran one of these in my old Camaro. I thought it was good. You know, I drag raced with it. It was awesome. It was nice on the street. And a good thing about these guys is you never have to rebuild the clutches. Just set it up and go. Let's get a closer look at this guy.